This is weird. Hey, it's Romania Black, and I don't feel like this should be the last episode of the Donghua of Scum Villain Self-Saving System, but it is. What do we do with that? I'm so excited because on this back shelf in this corner where my hand is are the 4 volumes of Scum Villain, and someone in the Discord asked if I had looked at the covers. Honestly, no. I got them in the mail. I opened up the box and put them on the shelf and was like, I will get there when I get there. And that was when I was in the midst of Heaven Official's Blessing. So I don't know what the covers look like, nor am I going to look until we pull each volume out. So that's good. Plus, I don't know if these volume covers will be like Heaven Official's Blessing and Modao Zushi. Modao Zushi, they weren't really contextual. Modao Zushi's covers are just, they're kind of like, it's Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji doing random things. But I don't think that they're plot spoilers with the Modao Zushi covers. With Heaven Official's Blessing, they are a little bit. So depending on the cover. So it's going to be interesting to look at those. But yeah, it doesn't feel like the end of the Donghua. It doesn't feel like it should be ending. It's setting things up for a season finale. I think, before we dive into this, that it's going to be Lo getting kicked into the abyss. But how that happens hasn't really been set up. How that's going to occur hasn't been set up. And I don't know, it may not end with him getting kicked into the abyss, which is so bizarre to me because there's no OVA after this. I would love season 2 to come out. I know it's in the works, but it's not been released yet. And so it just feels weird Donghua wise. At least with Heaven Official's Blessing, I knew they were working on a season 2 and it was close to coming out. And then season 2, without spoiling anything, has a pretty definitive closer. And then with Modao Zushi, I watched all of the Donghua at once, so I never had that feeling of, oh, now I have to wait. I got to experience it all fluidly. So this is a very, very weird episode because I don't feel like it's ending or that it should be ending because it's only episode 10. It's only 20 minutes long, which with that OP and ED, it's going to be 18 minutes. And I'm like, it's going to go by really fast. I am going to look at, after this is over, after this episode has ended, I will watch the ED. I will go back and watch the OP before we cut to the discussion. I am not looking at the post-credits scene because I was told not to by the moderators. They were like, no, you're going to find that out in the novel. Don't watch the post-credits scene. And I was like, can do. So that's what we're going to get to. I do have a couple comments and things to say before we start. And then we also are going to look at an advertisement that I was sent. I'm hoping it's Cornetto because they were like, oh yeah, there's this advertisement for Scum Villain you should watch. And I'm like, I hope it's Cornetto because Modao Zushi and Heaven Official's Blessing had Cornetto ads, which are little ice cream cones. They're so cheesy and cute and they just make my day so much better. So I'm going to hope it's that, but I don't know. So we're going to prep for that. I'm going to get my headphones out to already gear up for that when we get to it. And yeah, so before we start, I do want to say one thing. I noticed that back in the last episode, Shin says that both Wan Yu and Wan Rong are going to be in Lo's harem, but one of them just died. So did the story change dramatically? I didn't think about that. And then I was editing. I didn't talk about it in the discussion. And then I was editing and I was like, when Shin says, oh yeah, they're both going to be in his harem. And I'm like, but Wan Rong just died. So uh-oh. I was like, we just changed the storyline dramatically. That's not good. So I was like, oh shit, uh-oh. So yeah, we're gonna go back to that when we get to the novel version, but I'm like, oh, we're having dramatic changes to the story. Like an entire character, kind of like Liu was supposed to die but lived. Now Wan Rong was supposed to live but died. So the story is changing in ways that I don't think Shin is prepared for or knows what the consequences of are going to be. Because Wan Rong was the one that had the crush on Lo, right? The other sister was just like, So that's going to be interesting. But Anime Annie pointed out that Liu takes none of Shin's fakeness. And that's the thing. Liu knows Shin. He was supposed to be killed by him. So he's like, you not only spared my life when you hate me, but you're acting all lovey-dovey towards this disciple. You're not acting like yourself. What is up with this? I feel like Liu is like our secret Sherlock in the background trying to piece everything together and being like, what's going on? What is this? In terms of Heaven Official's Blessing, he's Pei Ming, basically. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. And also, the fact Anime Annie said, yeah, Shin is kind of slowly dying. I was like, oh yeah. We keep forgetting about that because one, Liu keeps stalling it using the spiritual thing that he's doing on him. But also, it's like, I don't think Shin is taking the whole dying thing seriously, because he's like, oh, well, it's just a visual novel. It's just a game. If I die, I'll just go back to the real world. No big deal. I don't know how isekais work. I don't want to know how they work, because I may end up watching others in the future, and that would spoil the surprise of those. But I'm going to be interested to see how it functions in this world and how that's going to change the game, or what that's going to do. Like, is he actually going to die in this? What happens if he does? I don't know, right? So we'll just have to see. And then finally, 5 cents 348 noted that Plane in the Sky, which is the name of the author, the fake author of this series of Scum Villain, is a network buzzword in China that means to masturbate. I was like, oh, okay. It's like a double entendre. Okay, all right. Play on words there. And then I was thinking of, I'm reading a comic series called Takeoff, that I don't know if it's a manhwa or not, because I don't know if the author, if the creator is Korean or Chinese, but it's called Takeoff. It does have 2 Korean American characters, but they it's called Takeoff, and they meet on a plane, and there's a lot of sexual innuendos, and it's like, oh, okay. So that all makes sense. And it's like, Houston, we have liftoff. Yeah. Yep. Why I didn't think of that up until now, mind. MXTX mind gutter moment. Thank you, 5 cents 348 for that. That's really appreciative. So yeah, we've talked enough. Thank you all for watching the Donghua with me. We still have quite a bit left. We still got the OP, the ED, the episode, and then that advertisement. But I give this series so much credit. I don't know where it's going to end at. And then it's going to be really fun to go through the novel and see where we end up catching up to. And if it's going to be the end of volume 1, if it's going to be halfway through volume 1, I don't know. I don't know. With as short as these episodes were, I don't know how much ground we're covering. So that's going to be really fun to see. But we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to dive right into episode 10 of Scum Villain Self-Saving System. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let me get this changed just a hair. All right. And let's... I'm going to go ahead. I say let's go, but I want to catch up to the end of the episode. Let's go. I am fully convinced that the Donghua team wants to make y'all suffer. Oh my god! What was that? I mean, that episode was really, really good. Don't get me wrong. There was a lot of really good things going on with it. We're going to talk about that. But that's where it ends? Oh my god, if you were Donghua, I feel like Prince Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender, where he uses the meme of the scroll and he's like, where's the rest of it? That's literally it. Like, how can you... That is the most egregious, like, just egregious, horrifyingly... shockingly short, abrupt ending to any show I think I've ever watched. Any season finale I've ever watched. That has been the most abrupt ending of just like, oh yeah, you're done. And I'm sure that they're going to show those end scenes that are bonus scenes. Here's the thing. The people in the Discord, the patrons in the Discord have told me, they're like, hey, we'll let you know when you get to it in the novel when you can watch those bonus scenes at the end. So I am going to go back to this episode at some point and rewatch those bonus scenes, but they're going to let me know once I get to the novel to go back and see that. And I'll be like, okay, cool. So don't worry about that. I am going to get to watch them, just not right now. But if you were donghua-only and you're still donghua-only, how you doing? You doing okay? Are you all right? Do you need help? Do I need to send you a care package, a medal, a cookie, some support? Because, like, it's been years, right? That's the most abrupt season finale I have ever watched in maybe television history. I'm like, at least the other 2 MXTX works, the seasons like have a definitive end, and you're like, oh, okay, we had a big boss battle, we got done with that, cool, we're setting things up for the next season, nice, see you when we get to it. They're literally in the middle of a fight. They're in the middle of a fight, running away. We didn't even get to the abyss, which I'm glad we didn't, because honestly, whenever we had the moment of Shin and Lo fighting together side by side, I was like, oh, we're not getting to the abyss this episode. No. And I don't think it's going to happen the way that Lo thinks it's going to happen. I don't think that Shin thinks it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen that same way that Shin thinks it is, based on what we saw in this episode. I think there's going to be more to it. There's going to be something else go on. I don't know exactly how it's going to come about, but it's not going to be the way it was in the OG novel. I don't think at this point it can be. I don't think it can be. I've got Conspiracy Board Sama in the wings, waiting to be updated as we go through the novel, but I don't think that it can go the same way that it did based on what we've gotten so far. That's just where I'm at with it. It's like, okay, so things are not going to be as they were. And I think that Shin got his first taste of that realization when we find out that Wanrong died, and he's like, wait a minute, one of Lo's harem has died? This wasn't supposed to happen. And I think he's trying to process that, which we'll talk about that. Good Lord. So I didn't bring Whiteboard Kun out only because the only reason I would use Whiteboard Kun in this episode is just to keep track of where everyone is at, which I think we can go over through this. It's mainly just our characters are scattered across the board. There's some sneaky stuff happening behind the scenes. There's some stuff going on that I think is being set up, but once we get to the novel, we're going to definitely talk in more detail about it. Whiteboard Kun's going to get all revved up for that. Don't you worry. So, also, I want to give a very quick shout out to Couscous and Reiki and Anime Annie and Pancake and others on the Discord who have been not only helping me get the advertisement, but also get the digital version of Volume 1. I'm supporting the official release in MXTX by buying the original copies, but they got me a digital e-published version that I can have alongside the screen here, like I did with Heaven Official's Blessing, as well as go through the novel, which I think will be very helpful. So, because I like reacting, looking at a screen like this so you all can see me react rather than just looking down at a book, but I do like going back through the book version and seeing any differences and noting that. So next week we're going to dive into this novel, which is going to be exciting. I was kind of dreading finishing the donghua because I was like, oh, I don't want the donghua to be over, but now I'm like jazzed up. Now I'm ready. Now I'm like, oh, we got to get into that novel now. We got to see what happens because this donghua is such a tease, right? I feel like there are 3 levels of the donghua versus the novel adaptation. And you all can agree or disagree with me, but in my personal opinion, now that I've seen the donghua season 1 of all 3 MXTX series, I will say, based on that, because I've watched the donghua before diving into the novel for all 3 series, so I could kind of compare each and every one of them now. For me, with Modao Zushi, I think, of the 3 donghua is the most could stand on its own of the 3. I feel like Modao Zushi is its own thing as far as a donghua. It can stand on its own. You don't have to go read the novel if you don't want to, but I think that you get a complete version. However, there is a lot cut out of the Modao Zushi donghua in comparison to Heaven Official's Blessing, and we'll see as Scum Villain. There's a lot cut out of Modao Zushi's donghua that's moved around or removed because it just doesn't fit. And so I think that as a standalone donghua, it works, but it is the one that you need to definitely go read the novel with to gain the full appreciation for. So that's kind of how I would describe Modao Zushi. Heaven Official Blessing, the donghua for it is a celebration. I feel like the donghua for it is pretty on brand with adapting straight from the novel. It takes its time. It goes through the novel chapters. It's not really leaving out any important plot lines. It's pretty well beat for beat, but it's definitely a celebration. I feel like the donghua for Heaven Official's Blessing is the one you go to after you've read the novel. Like with Modao Zushi, the donghua should be the donghua. You can watch the donghua and then be like, oh, that was cool, and move on. Or you can watch the donghua and then get to the novel and be like, oh my God, there's all this extra stuff. Awesome. So it's kind of like a gateway into the Donmai. Whereas with Heaven Official's Blessing, I feel like the donghua is a celebration. You've already read the novel, you already know the characters, and this is just celebrating it. Or at least that's how I felt with season 2, right? In season 1, I was like, oh, this is okay. But then once you read the novel, you're like, oh, yes, it's just celebrating the elements of the novel. This is a straight up tease. A straight up tease. This is demanding that you go read the novel now, right? I feel like Modao Zushi, they're like, well, you're missing out a little bit, so if you want to go read the novel, you can, but if not, here's a standalone donghua. Heaven Official's Blessing is, you've probably read the novel by now. Here's something to celebrate that. And then this one is like, you need to go read the novel. It's like, ah! At least that's how I feel with it. So This one is very much teasing us with the abrupt endings to the episodes, with the cliffhangers, with the animation. And I will say this, the animation 70% of the time is really, really good. I liked it a lot. I didn't mind the animation, at least up until episode 8. I didn't really notice anything like that was distracting. These last few episodes, I will not lie, the monsters distracted me a lot and reminded me of kind of the quality of the animation. I was like, oh, that was kind of clunky. That was kind of weird. Those monsters look like they were from a 1997 PlayStation game. Okay, so not enough to make me like mad at it, but just noticeable. Especially when you cut from a little scissor monster cutting through the grass with like very bad animation to Shin's beautifully expressive face where you can see every pore and every eyelash and you're like, oh my god, he looks gorgeous. Why is this monster looking like this? And then you're like, oh, well, budget reasons. We put our budgets towards Liu, Lo, and Shin. Fair enough. So I will say, though, the upside down monsters or the Venus flytrap monsters from the last episode were pretty creepy. And these little spider head things, no. I'm not scared of spiders necessarily, but the face hugger alien from the movie Alien or things that can possibly like, I'm glad it said it absorbed your brain. I was like, cool. When that one guy had it on his face, I was like, well, is it going to like lay its eggs inside of him and they're going to like burst out of his stomach or something? That stuff freaks me out. No. But this, I was like, oh, it's just absorbing his brain. No big deal. Still creepy. Still very creepy. So let's go through this episode. Let's just dive into this. So getting this final episode, I'm so amazed that that's where it ended. What? They're deciding that they're going to go off. The elders, the clan leaders are like, okay, things are going awry in the portal. There's monsters there that shouldn't be there. Some things are kind of sketchy. We need to go check it out and save our clans and get them back through. The hunt's kind of a bomb. We're going to like cut things off now and get them all back here. And Shin knows that whatever happens in this world is connected to the abyss and the plot line where Lo has to get kicked off into the cliff. Okay. So they all take off together towards the portal. We see the old man, we see some of the other clan leaders. Basically, it feels like the second guard goes first. I don't like the idea that the two clan leader groups split up. I'm not sure I'm all for that because I'm like, the one old man and his daughter were kind of shady. So I'm like, the fact that they went ahead and went first, I don't know if that's going to become a thing or if there's going to be stuff tied to that happens in the story. Shin knows what happens in the story, so he doesn't seem too concerned about that, so maybe not. But again, the story's changing from what it was before. So I don't know if that's going to lead to anything. But they go first through the portal and head that way. Liu in the background is just, I freaking love Liu. Gong Yi is animated a little bit similarly to Liu because I know Be Happy had them confused in the Discord. And I was like, they have the same eyes and their hair is slicked back the same way. And they both look freaking intense. So, but Liu is one of my favorites. He's so intense and he seems very wary of Shin. He's like, something's up with you. You're acting different. I'm going to keep my eye on you and see what's up. So he's just like, are we going? Are we doing things? What's happening? And Shin's like, yeah, sure, we're gonna go. Shin just looks so freaking gorgeous. And I like these, like, okay. And he's like, and at first, I like that the dare officer, leader of the Sky Clan, is like, just stay here. He's like, a pampered kid shouldn't act strong. Just leave the disciples to us. That's kind of a backhanded compliment where he's like, a pampered kid shouldn't have to be strong. I'm like, are you suggesting that Shin is pampered and that he shouldn't have to go do things like he's a Nepo baby? Like, what are you saying, dare officer? What are we doing? He's like, just leave the disciples to us. You just stay back here and stay comfy. I'm curious what the OG version of this was because Shin had to have gone in there. Now, Liu wasn't around during the OG version, so he wasn't there. But what did Shin say to go? Or how did he convince the others that he needed to go too? Now, again, this is kind of the crazy thing. Ever since the start of the story, Shin's perception and reputation has been slowly evolving and changing from what it was before. And Liu notices it, and he's like, you're not who you were before. What's happening? And so it's... unless we got to see from the OG version like Shin has, we don't know exactly how he got his way into the situation originally, but here he uses his big dramatic speech and uses his, like, you know, care for Lo to justify him going in. I love that Shin, even though Shin makes this very heartwarming, noble speech, in his head he's like, I'm the key character of the storyline, which isn't just him being a peacock, but also is like, he apparently has to be there for the Abyss part. And that's what's interesting too, is that if he had wanted to, he could have just stayed behind, right? He could have just said, okay, you guys go get him, I'm gonna be good. But he makes the decision to go. The system rewards him for going. So it's clear that he has to go to initiate the Abyss moment, which makes me think that he's going to have to be the one, at least to get Lo to the edge of the cliff. I'm still on the fence whether he actually kicks Lo into the Abyss or not, or whether he's there and someone else does it. Based on the fact that Shin has lost his aura has locked up and he has to find Liu, based on that, I would not be surprised if another character kicks Lo into the Abyss. And Lo, here's my thing, that kicks Lo into the Abyss, Lo, who is obsessed with Shin, loves him, is going to figure out right before he gets kicked in the Abyss that Shin is in danger and that his aura is locked up, whatever the case may be. And if he gets kicked down into that Abyss, maybe Lo is like, oh, I'm going to claw my way back up using these demonic arts, save my master, and then all of this stuff ends up happening and we go from there. I don't know. The fact that we get nowhere near that moment is both exciting, because what I was afraid of was that this season finale was going to rush us to that moment and it was going to feel like it wasn't earned. Here, it's going to feel earned. You just aren't even close to it yet. And we're like, but no. I almost would have rather they did like the thing with Modao Zushi is some of the episodes were long. Some of the episodes were longer than others and had more content, like almost as if it was rewarding you, being like, here's like a double feature for the finale. Here, this was shows like, nah, we're going to tease the shit out of you, and then you go read the novel. He's like, the show must go on. As much as Shin wants to stay behind so he doesn't have to be responsible for that Abyss moment that he thinks has to happen, and the storyline's telling him it has to happen, he's like, no, I need to go. I need to be there. I can't sit this one out as much as I want to. The show must go on. And I like the way they animate the conflict on his face. Like, he's really conflicted, but he just looks so beautiful there. I'm like, damn. He's like, Cal, can a master stand by to see his disciple in trouble? If I can't protect them, I might as well resign as the peak master. And then System's like, well said. Good job. A positive image was created. The villain personality shows more possibilities. Ooh, okay. So they're like, your personality has more options now because you've created a more positive image. And Shin's like, okay, good deal. Nice. Glad to have it. Again, Liu's looking at him like, who the fudge are you? And where is Shin from the past? And he's like, okay. And he's like, is the system rewarding me before my death? I'm like, Shin is so paranoid that he doesn't get that he's changing the story. He still thinks he's going to end up in the damn pickle jar. And he's traumatized by this storyline that he thinks is still going to happen without realizing he's changing the storyline. I'm like, and we'll talk about when he meets up with Lo, because I'm like, you're the most oblivious peacock ever. But yeah, he still thinks he's going to end up in the damn pickle jar. I'm like, Shin, sweetheart. And then Dare Officer, he's like, I can never remember his name, so I'm just going to call him the Dare Officer. If you don't know what Dare is, it's a program in the United States that's anti-drugs, and it was often paired with like an officer or a police officer that was like really kind and go-getting. It was like, oh, it'll be all right. Don't do drugs, kids. That's what this guy reminds me of. He's literally Dare Officer clan leader, and he's just like, everything's fine and all right as rain. That's the personality that he has. And he's like, all right, be careful. Come with us. Stick with us. And he's like, don't act alone. He's like, okay, thank you. Shin is just so sweet there. And then he's like, yeah, I get to ride on the swords. I love that this series acknowledges that Shin is trying to play the game and save his character's life. And also he has an appreciation for Lo. It's very complex and layered at this point, and I'm loving that about it. But at the end of the day, he's also this dork that's like, I I've wanted to know what it's like to ride on the swords. Now I get to ride on the swords. It's like in Harry Potter because that was like the big novel series that I read growing up. And I remember being a kid and being like, what would it be like to fly on the broomsticks and play Quidditch? Like that was always like the big thing of like, how cool would that be to know how to do that and be able to fly on a broom and do that? That's literally the equivalent to this. Mm-hmm. And the show's already mentioned Harry Potter, so it makes sense. But he's just like, I get to fly on the brooms. I can do the sword flight for the first time. So cute! And they all take off together. And I like that he's like kind of wobbly on the sword. Like he doesn't exactly know what to do first. He's so sweet. I just love how happy he looks in this moment. He's like, oh. I was wondering if they were going to do the sword flying like Modao Zushi does. Modao Zushi does the sword flying. They do. And that's cool to see that connection to the series there. Nice. And then they go in. And we see it. Yay. Now, the thing of it is, when he actually arrives there, he's sick to his stomach because motion sickness, am I right? But again, he doesn't realize, or maybe he does, that he's getting separated from the group. Now, they told him to stay together, and I was a little bit hopeful at that point because I was like, oh, cool. If they stay together, his aura won't get locked. And plus, if they're going to end up at the abyss moment, he'll have other people around, so maybe they will be responsible for low falling and not Shin. But that's not what we get. Shin is now separated from everybody and is by himself again. And I'm like, oh, that is setting up the fall into the abyss. But we're not there yet, right? Also, it sets up the idea that he doesn't have somebody to help lock his aura or unlock his aura. So just creating a world of problematic elements, right? But how MXTX do. Meanwhile, the two characters that are kind of separated away from the group right now, so we have all the clan leaders are over here searching for the disciples, right? Then we have Shin and Lo and the Sky Clan people over here, and some others from Gong Yi's clan and ever. They're the ones fighting the spiders. Then we have Gong Yi, Gong Yi is not very far from the others, it seems, fighting the snake monster. Then we have what's her face, Ming Yan, is that her name? It's not Ming Fan, I think it's Ming Yan, that she's with the leaders of the Sky Tribe with her, and they're fighting like the little needles that are like piercing and killing everybody. So we have basically 4 groups of people in this novel at this point that are all spread out, right? 4 or 5, depending on if the clan leaders get together or not. I really like her. She's so freaking badass and cool. I love her in like keeping her clan together. The one guy that was like, I can't take it anymore, and like runs off, he reminded me of the scene from Bambi. In the Disney movie Bambi, there's like a bunch of pheasants and they're like, I'll fly. No, don't fly. You'll get killed. I've got to fly. And they're like, don't fly. And finally this one pheasant loses its mind and it's like, I can't take it anymore. And it like flies off and gets shot. It's traumatizing. My childhood was traumatized by that moment. But this guy's decision to run out in front of the group has the exact same repercussions. I will say the donghua budget for animation, they go all out with the main characters and important characters. Everyone else, the animation is like I've got the screen paused at this one moment and like this one character's head is like detached from their body. It's noticeable this episode. And the moment where they throw the fireworks, it's like pew, just like boop boop boop. I find it fun and funny that it's kind of comical that they just like decided what to do with their budget. And kudos, respect, give the budget animation to the people that matter, but it's just kind of funny. With bad animation, it doesn't bother me as much as I think it does other people. I could see where other people, they are taken out of the illusion of the story and it is frustrating. So I get people that are like, oh, the animation sucks. I get that. I do. It doesn't bother me so much personally because I grew up with some bad animation and really good stories, so I can deal with it, but it is noticeable and kind of comical at times. But I do appreciate our girl Ming Yan for trying to like get everybody together and saving them and getting to a point where they can like take back the arrows and like have this little barrier to like hide out until they can make sure that they're safe. Meanwhile, Gong Yi is fighting the snake monster, and he looks damn good. Like, Gong Yi he reminds me of Liu in how stoic he is and intense he is, but he also seems like he's kind of the opposite of Lo in a lot of ways. him and Lo both seem like they have kind of a noble demeanor where they want to save people and help people and rescue their fellow clan members. Like they both seem very noble and have a sense of justice to them, which is cool. But whereas Lo kind of reacts very emotionally and is like charged and he can kind of be aggressive in his front, Gong Yi is not aggressive. He's very calm, he's very cool, he's very collected, he's strategizing and thinking as he goes. Not to say that Lo isn't smart. Lo is smart, but Lo reacts very passionately and emotionally, whereas Gong Yi seems to have a little bit more of a kind of strategic sensibility about him. Not to say that Lo isn't, but he's not as emotional as Lo. So, but I really want to see Gong Yi and Lo work together, but I don't know. The series kind of gives Gong Yi this kind of protagonist vibe to him, almost like a rival protagonist. Like, I mean, Shin is the villain. He's not vying for protagonistship at this point. He's the villain that's trying not to die at the end of the story. But Gong Yi, and I would have to go back, hopefully in the novel they go back through the OG stuff a little bit more with the OG story that we can put on Conspiracy Board Sama. But the thing about Gong Yi's character is they frame him as the one that everybody thinks is going to win the tournament. Everybody has their bets on him. He is the one to beat, and he's the one that everybody says is like the shining star of all of the clans. Whereas Lo is the ultimate underdog that has the ability to be a leader and bring all the clans together, but he's the one that no one suspects and no one has any faith is going to achieve. Whereas Gong Yi's the one everybody's placing their bets and pressure on. So there seems like you could have a rivalry there. And I'm going to be curious, you know, back a few episodes ago, Gong Yi and Lo kind of looked at each other and were like, sup, bro? Sup, bro? And they seemed like they were going to get along great. But here's the thing. Shin would gladly overlook the fact that Lo has this demonic aura because Shin's like, I want to save myself. I'll go along with it. If I stay on his good side, I'll say whatever I need to. Gong Yi, if he has this stoic sense of justice to destroy demons, he may not be like Shin and waver even though he knows Lo. He may be like, oh, you decided to go the demon route. Now I have to fight you and we have to be rivals. Maybe that's what it's setting up. I don't know. And Shin has to be like, what do I do? So we'll have to see on that. But I think that it's setting up something that could have a lot of interesting repercussions down the road. But yeah, he sets up to where this snake, he lures him into the mountainside to crash him under the avalanche. I thought that was really, really clever. And I thought that was a smart plan, but it does not work out in the end. He thinks that he has him and then he doesn't. But man, the one thing they do really well in this episode is they animate Gong Yi's fear really good. Like him being like wide-eyed and freaked out as that snake gets toward him. They animated that really good. I thought that the expression on his face and the emotion in that moment, I was a little bit worried about him. I'm like, ooh, is he gonna die too? Is he gonna die? And that's gonna be another thing, is that the one guy everybody's banking on to be the leader in all this, is he gonna end up dying? I don't know. And you know, just throwing theories out here, is one thing Lo does going to be to I don't know, does he end up killing Gong Yi? Here's the thing. In the original story, Lo is the ultimate protagonist. He can't die. And he ends up being the ruler of all three realms, has his harem of girls, whatever. What if Lo ends up becoming the villain of the series and Shin ends up becoming the hero? I don't know. And then Shin has to make the decision to save Lo or not. Or put him in the pickle jar. I don't know. I'm so curious and excited to get into this novel, to see what happens with Gong Yi, to see what happens between Shin and Lo, to see all of this. I'm super, super, super excited to see where it ends up going. But yeah. And then the snake gets distracted by the others and takes its leave. And so Gong Yi, it's like, what is he going to do? He's left behind. Is he going to chase after the monster that he knows he can't beat? Or is he going to try to go back to his clan and escape with them? That's going to be an interesting question to see what Gong Yi ends up doing. Meanwhile, everybody's spiritual energy is getting zapped by this barrier. And here's the thing. Gong Yi seems like a very kind-hearted, reasonable person. The two girls, or the girl clan members from, I don't know what the Yellow Clan's name is at this point, that Gong Yi is kind of the poster boy for. I think they're with the old man, right? They're his, right? Because they said the old man was the mentor of Gong Yi, and they're like, oh, you're a disciple, and he's like, oh, well, I can't take all the credit. Yeah, so that's their clan. The girls that are with Lo and Gong Yi seem very reasonable, kind-hearted, compassionate people that would not leave each other behind and are dedicated towards protecting everybody. These bitches in this group here, they look over to the one girl, Qing Yan or whatever her name is. They look over to her group and they're like, nah, we're just gonna keep walking. They're like, we're gonna meet up with our clan leader and get the hell out of here. I'm like they just straight up abandoned them, and I'm like, oh my god, that is. I'm not surprised that that happens in an MXTX story, but I was like, oh, we're setting up a lot of dissonance between the different clans. We're setting up a lot of factors that could lead to like a big scuffle between these clans, while at the same time you're having these clans doing things that would put them against one another. You have Lo, who's doing things to bring the clans together. So again, I feel like it's setting up a lot in the novels that could shake out in different ways depending on what direction MXTX goes with it. But that sucks. They just abandoned them. And so then we see this big thing through the sky. This big like comet. Like it gets the snakes' attention, it gets their attention, and there's all the birds and everything's flying towards it. And it like rumbles. It's like got the snake's attention. The snake is going towards, okay, so the snake is going towards her and her crew. The comet distracted it and got it to go that way. So is Gong Yi going to end up saving her or like joining forces with them and then representing like his clan in a positive way since they've seen the rest of his clan like leave? Interesting. But then we cut away from it. It's like we don't find out what happened to them. So I'm like, damn it, now I got to wait and see what ends up happening. So yeah, we cut back to the fire and then the one sister still grieving that she's lost her sister Wanrong. Wan Yu is grieving. And Lo, of course, because he's kind and compassionate and emotionally empathetic, he gives her like his handkerchief to dry her eyes. And she takes it. She doesn't look like she's interested in him romantically at all. Thinking about it now, I wonder if Wanrong was the one that was originally supposed to be like grabbed by him and saved when they did like the little spiral again around each other. But she doesn't seem like she likes him as much, but she respects him and she wants to be his friend, and she's like, oh, thank you. But he doesn't stick around to like comfort her, like pat her on the shoulder or give her a head pat or a hug. Nah, he's like, here, have my tissue, and then he goes off to think about Shin. So I feel like she looks at the handkerchief he gives with the bamboo and stuff on it and thinks to herself, like, he was kind enough to give me this to dry my tears. He's also motivating me to become a stronger person for others around me, like he's being strong for me. And then she sees the girls from the Sky clan and her own clan crying, and she's like, I can take a page from Lo's handbook and be kind and considerate and strong for these women. So again, I think that all these women that were in Lo's harem are not necessarily going to be in a harem with him, but they're going to be like a squad of beards that are just there to like be motivating to others and strong for other clan members and then rally them all together, and Lo's like their flagship. I'm all here for that. Like if she helps Lo and becomes friends with him, platonic besties, I'm here for that. So I really like that she's kind of motivated by Lo to do well. Meanwhile, Lo is like, what the hell is going on? These guys that are sharing the jerky, I feel like this is such like a BL coded moment. The one guy has the jerky in his mouth that he's munching on, and the other guy like tries to grab it out of his lips, and they're tugging on it with their mouths while they're holding hands. I'm like, MXTX, were you just trying to slip in this moment because you could? I feel like you are. And I feel like it's very coded. I'm going to be interested to see how it is in the novel, but here it looks very coded. Meanwhile, then these spiders show up, these human head spiders that are freaking terrifying. They are a nightmare. No, sir. No, ma'am. They are horrifically scary. The budget on them, they actually look creepy. They move around creepy. They start flying. They are very effective. The snake monster and them are the most effective monsters in this season. They are very well done. And there's just this, like, creeping zombie-like quality to them. They are very creepy. I definitely think they were effectively done. Yes. But yeah, and then now my one thing is the one girl, she doesn't exactly know what to do. So sure, I get that she has her sword. She doesn't know how to fight the spiders, but she just stands there with it like out in front of her. I'm like, are you gonna like take your sword and smack at it, or are you just gonna like hold on and hope that it impales itself? What are you doing? So Chin, Junior Chin, yeah, although very creepy. And then of course, this spider was about to kill her. And who shows up to save her but our boy Shin? He ends up showing up to save them all. And then I love Lo looks over like, oh, who could it be? And then like a friggin' badass, like the protagonist of his own story, he's like, you can't handle it without me. At the key moment, right? Why does he have to have like the badass phrase? I was like, ah, Shin gets to have his Diva Peacock moment. I'm like, I am pretty sure this did not happen in the OG like this. I'm pretty sure that is not what happened at all. Nope. But he shows up. He's like, I get to be the hero and save everybody from the spiders. Exciting times. And then everybody's like, oh, they're all dead. And they're like, that man helped us. He's Master Shin from Heaven Sky Clan. And Lo's face, like the smile he has towards him, being like, oh, he showed up. And then Shin with that damn fan, he's like, oh, you made me worried. I'm like, do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you are doing, sir? Shin thinks he's just saying words, being the cool protagonist, but I'm like, do you have any idea what the context of that is to Lo? Lo was already following you around like a puppy dog. You might as well have shown up with a freaking ham bone and said, for you, sir, on a silver platter. Because Lo's just like, master. And they go together and like, what a relief. They're like, we're saved. And he's like, master. And he's like, oh, well, is everything okay? Did anyone get hurt? And he's like, oh, my sister. And that's when the woman tells him that Wan Rong is dead now. And Shin's like, wait, what? He's like, dead? Part of your harem? He's like, what? He's like, even one of your harem? I like when he puts a fan in front of his face, like, oh no, like, what, but how can this be? And then, in front of God and all creation, he's like, oh, he puts the hand on his shoulder with his sympathy, and Love's like, why you getting all consoling to me? And Shin's like, you've worked so hard. And like, he tries to like, oh my God, he tries to make Lo feel better that he's lost like the love of his life. He's like, you tried so hard to save her. It's okay that you couldn't, man. I understand you lost her, but you've got 2,999 other bitches to worry about. It'll be okay. Lo doesn't care about any of them. Lo takes that moment to be like, I've worked so hard for you. It's my responsibility to do so. I'm like, Shin! Shin has no clue what monster he's created. He really doesn't. And Shin's just like, well, he's like, everyone don't panic. I'm like, Shin, you have no clue what you've done. So oblivious. Yep. He's like, all the seniors from the clans are here to rescue you, and I'm going to do my best to protect you. And they're like, yay, we're saved. And he's like, master, where? And then they explain how to attack the monsters by shooting them in the head. And so then the monsters start coming out of the bushes, and Shin is like, look, I just told you how to beat them. You just aim for the weakness. Let's do this all together. And we get this amazing montage of them all working together. And there is a scene from Heaven Official's Blessing, and I'm not going to spoil when or what exactly it is, but it involves the main protagonists working together, and I feel like it was based off of this in respect. Only it happens, all I'll say is it happens a lot later than this in the story. This actually happens fairly early on, which is interesting to me. But yeah, but they all work together. I love that they're side by side, and of course, Shin jinxes himself. He's like, well, if my aura gets stuck now, I'm in trouble. And then speak of the devil, it just like happens right then and there. And his aura gets locked. And of course, Lo doesn't exactly know what's going on. He thought that Shin was okay. He doesn't realize that he's still slowly dying. And I like, again, also gonna say, with the animation, like Lo is like holding him up by his pecs there. It's a slightly intimate gesture and way to hold him. It's slightly intimate there. I am not going to say any more than it looks very intimate between the two of them. And he's like, why at this critical moment? So here's the other thing too. Shin does not have to account in the OG novel for the fact that he's slowly dying and that his aura is getting locked. Because in the OG version of the story, that didn't happen. He didn't try to save Lo from the poison dart. He didn't try to do that because he didn't have to, because Lo was the protagonist. He wasn't going to get hurt. But here, because Shin cares about Lo, he tried to save him and protect him when he didn't really need to, and he ended up getting poisoned because of it. So in the OG story, Shin is not slowly dying. So yeah, that's going to change things. And now, of course, Shin's like, why at this crucial moment is this happening to me? And there's no answer, because only the Scum self-saving system knows what the answer to that is, but Shin does not. So the spiders start to break out, and they manage to like get a formation. They manage to get a line cut through, and they're like, okay, everybody go. You go ahead first. But the one girl, because she's been motivated and influenced by Lo, the one girl stays back to help him, to help Shin alongside Lo. She stays to help them both, and then they try to like outrun the spiders and get through there. And that's the end of the episode. I'm like, what? I'm still in shock that that's where it ends and that's it. I'm so in shock about it. I'm just like, wait, what? No. So, anyway, I'm gonna watch this advertisement now because I told everybody that I would react to it, and then we'll talk about the novel. But, so I have no clue what this advertisement is about. I know that it is, see, Modazushi and Heaven Official's Blessing had like little cornetto ads or little ads for tea or cakes or stuff like that. So I'm assuming this is something similar, but I'm not entirely sure. So we're gonna see about that. But in any case, we're gonna see what this is like. I'm really kind of excited, actually. But we're going to watch it and see what we get. And let me make this a little bit better. We're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. What? Shut the frick up! No! What? What? What does it say? I didn't read the... Please enjoy this translation or sub of the Scum Villain Self-Serving Sanitary Napkin commercial that appeared in episode 8. I love that shit is so earnest to help his disciple. Why? What? They know their target audience. They know their target audience. Like, ladies, you're watching this Donmai with these two men. If you need some sanitary napkins, now's the time. Here's a brand for you. They're targeting their female audience so appropriately. They're either like, MXTX knows their audience. It's either like, oh my god, you can have ice cream or you can have pads. Oh my god. So yeah, like what he said there, he's like, oh, your period's giving trouble. I love that Shin's so earnest. Like, okay, let's be also real here. what heterosexual man would instantly go up to him and be like, see, your period's giving you some trouble? That is so gay coded. Like, as someone that has friends that are homosexual, that is so, like, I have male friends that are heterosexual and homosexual. None of my heterosexual friends that are men would ever come up to me and be like, see, your period's giving you some trouble. But I've had friends that are gay that are like, hey, is that period bothering you? Oh my God. But what does he give her? He gives her, he's like, I'll turn this package of just random sanitary garments that you have to take with you on your trip, because having a period in medieval times or in ancient times would suck, and you can hide it in the palm of your hands. Yeah, these cute little pads. And they're like little cat paw pads. That's genius marketing. And she's like, wow, can you make it even cuter? And he's like, sure. The only thing that's kind of confusing is changing it into a cat. Like, this cat gonna what gonna end up wiping your period blood on that cat? How does this work? And then Lo's like, man, I'm so envious that she has that little cat. And then he looks so earnest, and Shin's like, you are really a little dummy. It's not easy being a young female cultivator. Kotek's pocket always helps you stay connected. Oh my God. I don't know what to make of that ad, if it's suggesting that Lo would like to be the one that has the feminine products, or, because here's my thing. I know that in MXCX's other works, it is, in Heaven Official's Blessing, it is very clear who would be the top and bottom character. It's very clear. From the start. Not to say that one of them can't be a power bottom, but it's very clear. In Modao Zushi, it's clear who the top is, but the other is a power bottom for sure. Or I guess, well, I think that, and then people will be like, no, they're a pillow princess. And I'm like, fine. So you could argue that. Here with these two, I honestly don't know. Because a part of me thinks that Shin thinks he's a top, but he's not. And then the other part of me is Lo thinks that he's a bottom, but he's not. So it's going to be interesting seeing how that works out. It's going to be interesting seeing how that works out. But that is freaking hilarious. Oh my God. Well, that was fun. I'm super excited about that now. So as far as the series goes, here is the thing, y'all. Next week's the novel. We're going to start volume 1. There have been a lot in the Discord post chapters. They've not told me, like, they've blurred out the title of chapters, so I don't know what the title of chapters are, but I see the page numbers. And then Reiki and Couscous went through and they actually detailed, like, where certain chapters end, because apparently in the novel they're in huge chunks. And I'll be honest, they're like in 60 to 70 page chunks. From my experience with Heaven Official's Blessing, that's way too many pages for me. Like, I'm good with like 20 or 30. 20 or 30 I can get a nice focused episode on, especially when we're dealing with a story like this. It's going to have a lot of story changes, keeping up with parallel elements, things like that. I don't want to get more than 30 or 40 pages in a reading. 30 would be ideal. So I'm going to be going through, making a list of my chapters to go through and how I want to organize it. And we'll start from there with volume 1 and see where we go to from there. And I can probably adjust it as I go. If it seems like it's too much that I'm reading, I can adjust it. If it seems like it's too little, I can adjust it as well. So, but we'll start that next week and see how far we get until we catch up in this with the novel. I feel like we're not through volume 1. I feel like we're maybe 3/4 of the way through volume 1. I don't know why the donghua didn't give us 2 more episodes. I feel like if they gave us 12 episodes, we could have maybe got to the end of volume 1 or close to it. I feel like 13 episodes, yeah, we could have done it, but that wasn't in their mindset, so there was probably a reason for it. But anyway, I have loved this donghua. If season 2 comes out, I will watch it in a heartbeat. But until then, we're going to start the novel next week. So I'm excited, y'all. I hope you all are as well. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yes, I'll be back very soon with more Scum Villains Self-Saving System. Bye!